Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a paper that does something pretty amazing. It takes one of the biggest dreams from sci-fi and tries to turn it into an actual engineering plan. We're going to move past just talking about it and ask, okay, what would it really take to build a machine that's conscious?
All right, so let's just jump right into the big question, right? We have machines that can think, that can crunch numbers, heck, they can even make art now. But can we build one that feels? Something that has its own subjective internal world. That's the real mountain we're trying to climb here.
And this gets us right to the heart of it, what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. And it's all about this idea of qualia. That's just a fancy word for the raw, subjective feeling of something. Like, why does the color red look the way it does to you? Or why does pain actually hurt? Explaining that inner experience, that's the toughest nut to crack.
But here's the cool part. What if we could take this question out of the philosophy department and drag it straight into the engineering lab? Well, that's exactly what this paper is trying to do. It lays out this incredibly bold roadmap that says, hey, let's stop treating consciousness like some untouchable mystery and start treating it like an engineering problem we can actually solve. So, let's see what their plan is.
Okay, first things first. Before you can even think about building something, you have to know how to measure it. So step one is figuring out how to spot and, quantify consciousness in the only place we're 100% sure it exists, inside our own heads. So scientists are on the hunt for something they call the neural correlates of consciousness, or NCCs for short. The basic idea is that for every single thing you consciously experience, seeing a color, feeling happy, whatever, there's a very specific, minimal pattern of neurons firing in your brain. It's like a unique fingerprint for every single thought or feeling.
So how in the world do you find these fingerprints? Well, there's this really clever method, kind of nicknamed zap and zip. Researchers use a magnetic pulse, that's the zap, to give the brain a little nudge. Then they use an EEG to listen to the electrical echo that comes back, that's the zip. It's kind of like tapping on a bell to hear how complex and rich the sound is.
And what they found is pretty incredible. You can actually boil down that complex echo into a single number, called the Perturbational Complexity Index, or PCI. And here's the kicker. When a brain is awake and conscious, that PCI number is high. But put someone under anesthesia, and boom, the number plummets. It's almost like we found a consciousness meter.
This whole idea of measurable complexity is the bedrock for one of the leading theories out there right now, called Integrated Information Theory, or IIT. The core concept is actually pretty straightforward. Consciousness, it says, comes from how well a system can weave together or integrate information. The more integrated and interconnected it is, the more conscious the system is. And IIT even proposes a way to measure this, with a specific value called phi. A higher phi score basically means more consciousness.
Okay, so if we can measure it, can we build it? This is where we pivot from studying the brain to actually engineering one. The next big challenge is designing computer hardware that can pull off the same kind of sophisticated information juggling that our brains do.
Right, so traditional AI, what we call artificial neural networks, they're kind of like a gas-guzzling muscle car. Super powerful, but they use a ton of energy. Neuromorphic computing is a totally different beast. It's designed to work more like an actual brain. It uses something called spiking neural networks, or SNNs, where the artificial neurons only fire when they actually have something important to communicate, just like our own brain cells. This event-based style makes them way more energy efficient.
And listen, this isn't just some far-off theory. There are huge, ambitious projects happening right now to build these digital brains. You've got the Human Brain Project, which is trying to map the whole thing. The Blue Brain Project has already managed to simulate a chunk of a rat's brain. And then there's this model called Spawn, which has millions of virtual neurons and can actually recognize things, remember them, and carry out tasks. It's really happening.
But we need a reality check. Just look at this number, 100 billion. That's roughly how many neurons are packed into your brain. So while Spawn's 2.5 million is a huge achievement, it really puts into perspective the massive gap we still have to cross to simulate the whole shebang.
And this is where the paper gets really exciting. This is the big reveal. It takes those measurement tools from neuroscience and that brain-inspired hardware from engineering, and it merges them into a single, concrete, step-by-step plan for building an artificially conscious machine. So here it is, their four-phase plan. They call it the NCAC framework. Step 1, quantification. You start by measuring that consciousness score, that phi value, in a real biological brain. Step 2, simulation. You build a digital version of that brain using those super efficient spiking neural networks. Now, step 3 is where the magic happens: adaptation. You use machine learning to train your digital brain, tweaking it over and over until its activity patterns and its phi score match the real brain's. And finally, step 4, implementation. You take that fully trained model and you deploy it into real hardware, like a robot or a neurochip.
So let's take a breath here. This is a huge goal. I mean, it's incredibly ambitious and maybe even a little dangerous. So it's a totally fair question to ask, why? Why are we even doing this? What's the point of building a conscious AI in the first place?
Well, the paper gives a few big reasons. For one, there's just pure scientific curiosity, right? The drive to finally solve the puzzle of our own minds. But there are also some really practical applications. Imagine an AI that could have genuine empathy, that could truly adapt. Think about healthcare, an empathetic AI caregiver, or even technology that could help restore consciousness. And maybe the biggest reason of all is ethical. To build AIs that are truly aligned with human values, maybe we first have to understand the very thing that makes us human.
And this quote really nails it. At the end of the day, this whole quest isn't just about making smarter robots. It's about building a kind of mirror. By trying to replicate consciousness, we're really trying to unravel the mysteries of our own subjective experience, our own self-awareness. To build a mind is to finally get a glimpse into how our own minds work.
Which brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. This paper gives us a potential roadmap, but what happens if we actually follow it? If we succeed? If we create something that can genuinely feel, that has its own inner world? What then? What are our responsibilities to it? What do we owe the first artificial minds?